Michael, it's good to see you again.
Oh my goodness. Are we having fun yet?
Fun is one word for it, I guess.
Indeed. In the 70s, there was like this big is I guess we call it a meme now. They were stickers back then. And it was a sticker of Snoopy with Woodstock floating above him. And Snoopy's jumping in the air, and there's like the little marks that looks like he's clanking his feet together. And it
Mhm.
says, "Are you having fun yet?" And my dad outlined the sticker and painstakingly painted it in red paint, in red pinstripe paint on the front fenders of his like 1977 long white with red vinyl interior Ford Thunderbird.
Wow.
So we are definitely having fun for sure.
We are having fun. How
How
was
you
your
doing,
weekend?
sister?
I'm okay. I'm here. Just
Yes.
trying to figure everything out with SYEP. But we're having fun, right? How was your weekend?
My weekend's kind of like this. So this is my weekend.
What is that?
And this is meant to I got this thing. I thought it was going to be awesome, like, hey, we need someplace to hang our yoga mats, right? So I did the whole Amazon thing, and I went online and I searched around, and um and I find it, and it's like, like $12, so I get it. And then it comes and I show it to my wife, who always has the better ideas. And she's like, oh, like it should, it's like the room is so, like, sort of nirvanic. So shouldn't it be wood or something like that? And I was like, why didn't I think of that? Why did I get like this just simple, I don't know, like wire, like unattractive, not very, like, it has no, I mean, it's purposeful, like it serves a purpose.
Hmm.
So she comes up with the next idea, which is to wrap it in rope. So I get this, this rope, and I start wrapping it, and it's not going well, as you can see. So uh, the short end of this story is that it got me thinking about how, when we're in conflict,
Hmm.
that, like, usually conflict kind of like the situation starts off kind of plain and sort of simple and really has no, I don't know, like, design. And then you add yourself to it, like the situation, the conflict, and then suddenly, like, you're all in knots.
Hmm.
And then you're trying to, like, get the knots out because you weaved it wrong, like you weaved the conversation wrong. And now I'm like trying to get it out, and I can't figure out what I did. So I thought I would bring on a prop, to, like, really, like, give an example to, like, this is what happens when we're in conflict. We have, like, this sort of simple thing that is a relationship, and then we tie knots around it. And
Hmm.
then in order to, like, figure out how to undo the knots, you really have to, like, get back to the simple.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I'm sitting here trying to do this, and I was thinking, I'm going to use this, like, as a silly little prop on our beautiful little podcast. So that is what's going on. I'm going to show you the finished product whenever I figure out how to get it done before we put it on the wall, though.
You
Deal?
should. And then when you finish the project, let me know what style of conflict management you used. See, look, it's all connecting. Let me know what style of conflict management you used in order to figure everything out. Okay.
Exactly. 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 That is so totally it. And
Yes.
indeed, we have such a great show today. We're about to get into an amazing conversation, with two of, NICET's conflict management, team members, Randy Brown and Liz Bonici. So we're going to tell you a little bit about them. Why don't you kick us off, Robin, and tell us about Randy?
Randy's journey in educating youth began in 2004 with violence prevention programs tailored for at risk schools, detention centers, and Rikers Island, using improv acting and role playing to help youth find their voice and break unwanted cycles. After being awarded with a scholarship in Labyrinth Theater's masterclass, Randy expanded his service to after school programs, bringing drama, literary arts, and sports to a myriad of schools throughout New York City. In 2015, Randy shifted his focus to restorative circles and social work, creating alternatives to punitive processes within school environments. The effort lowered suspension rates, raised attendance, and raised student retention in using automotive high school, reaching all requirements to be taken off the list for at risk schools. Randy joined the team at NICET as a restorative justice coordinator in March of this year and still coaches football for Automotive High School, now officially called ATEC.
I can't wait to talk to him. Also, because he's such a new NICET team member, and we went right into the craziness just as he came on. So I only had like a hot minute to talk to him. And truly, I've had plenty of amazing conversations with Liz. Liz began work at NICET in 2001 in an administrative role and fully transitioned to the conflict resolution team in 2005. She has helped countless people and families resolve their conflict and live better lives. Initially, her work was overseeing mediation in schools, parent and child mediations, and truancy mediations. She also helped coordinate NICET's parent ACT and managed volunteers for many, many years. Liz is trained in various forms of mediation and has invaluable experience with putting these mediation skills into action. She is guided by a truth: meditation works. She believes that every school in New York City should offer mediation services. When schools, families, and communities work together, young people are more likely to exceed expectations and overcome obstacles. Mediation is a great tool that can help young people further their education. She is a native Staten Islander. She is a powerhouse. She has such been a dedicated member of the NICET team. And both of these individuals are so dedicated to our community. And we are super excited to have a great conversation with them about all things restorative, about mediation. And I keep confusing that with meditation for some reason. I wonder why. And let's kick this off. Zister, how about it?
I'm ready. I'm excited. Let's do it.
We're bringing our true selves and we're speaking from our heart.
The solution becomes better when we become part of the solution.
A principal might now, instead of immediately suspending a child, know they have a restorative justice coordinator in the building, and if they just suspend that child, that coordinator is going to question them and say, well, why did you just suspend them?
How do you take that energy that you have and translate it into like a compassion torch?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Effective Expressions. How is everyone doing today?
Good.
Pretty good.
Excellent.
What is going on, everybody? This is the first time that we're doing it. We have 4 boxes on the screen. We're growing.
Yes, we are. It's very exciting.
It is. We're super excited to have Randy Brown and Elizabeth Bonici from our conflict management team with us today. And we are going to get into all sorts of up, down, left, and right about what it means to be effective communicators and what does restorative practices mean and how do we do it. And these 2 individuals are right here, ready to answer all of our amazingly detailed questions that we've come up with. So please, let's just start with whoever is feeling comfortable and confident to just get us going. And how are you both doing today? And what's happening?
I'll go. I'm I'm doing well. Mike. I can't complain. It's we're going through turbulent times, but I think what I've been able to do is just stay solid and stay grounded and see the way through, and really focus on the internal instead of be so driven by the external events that are happening. And I did that work a couple of years ago, and I'm glad that I did that work, because now I'm able to not get so thrown off course when when we find ourselves in turbulent times like we do right now. So I'm just riding the wave, man. I'm going with the current. I'm letting go. I'm being free, and I'm enjoying it.
Sure. Have you been taking our meditations in the morning quietly? There's a lot of stuff there.
I have not, but I am tied into the spiritual knowledge. So I definitely really study that and really keep it close to my heart. So absolutely. I'm sure we have the
Excellent.
same ideologies.
I
That's
bet we're about
great.
to find out. And Miss Liz, how are you, my sister?
I'm doing good. I am actually enjoying and getting spoiled by this remote work from home.
Mm.
Um, Coffee breaks in the afternoon, lunch every day with my significant other. But I am also experiencing what a lot of people are. I'm done with it. It's getting old. Starting to really like miss the old ways. And so looking forward to the possibility of, doing some kind of a blended work schedule. I always look at September as being a new beginning for us because we're involved in so many school projects. And so, this is just a natural wind down. I have some vacation coming up. I think Randy has some vacation coming up, maybe even tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm not sure. And so I'm looking forward to that, but also looking forward to, what's going to come September, October, November, December in this new way of working through things. So it's exciting.
I totally feel you, Liz, when you say that you're being spoiled because I work every day in my pajamas and it's great. And I definitely can't do that when we start to go back into the buildings and things like
Mhm.
that. So I completely understand. So if you guys want to tell us about the work that you do at the center, that'd be great.
So I'll start, I guess. So I'm as the director of training and program development in ICID. I oversee the conflict management services area of our agency. I have this extraordinary team. They all bring a uniqueness to the work that they do and their experiences. And so I'm so proud to be able to lead them. I'm not the boots on the ground person, but I know that I can count on my team. I do a lot of connecting with schools and organizations to bring new work to what we're doing. And so I have a good sense of all the work we do, and I know the talent that we have. And so, it's just a joy to be able to bring it to our team. And I know I can ask them just about anything, and they create the magic. So they make my life easy.
That's
So that's where I
awesome.
am.
And Randy, if you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
Sure. I just joined NICID in March, so I think March 2nd was my starting day. We hit the ground running as soon as I got in with the company. I had a great interview with them, and I was really excited about this new step in my life because I was able to take restorative justice, which is what I do for the company, and do it in a brand new borough. In previous years I had experience working in every single borough except for Staten Island. So it was a new step for me. And I've enjoyed it this entire time. I've enjoyed meeting the new faces and just understanding the lay of the land and getting to know community organizers who are really, having their boots on the ground. And so we're working collaboratively to try to get through this tough time, but also like build a sense of true community so that, when things happen, we can really like fall on each other and support each other and hold each other up. And I think that's what's most important.
Excellent.
So can you, Randy, tell the listeners what is restorative justice and what are restorative practices and how does that play out with the work that we do at NICID?
But that's a whole lot. So I'm gonna try to.
I know.
Do you mind if before Randy goes into that, if I could just talk a little bit more about all of the services that we have under the conflict management umbrella, so to speak, because I think Randy is a very large piece of what we do. So we are the Community Dispute Resolution Center for Richmond County. And what that is every county in New York State is represented by a community-based organization to provide free mediation services to their residents and any organizations that are in their counties. Over the years, the number of centers has decreased because of funding issues. And so the more north you go in the state, the more centers are combined. And so you might have 7 counties upstate that are covered by one mediation community dispute resolution center. We're fortunate in the 5 boroughs, every borough has their own center. And so as part of that work, we do a lot of different services. We do training. We work with schools, we work with all of the courts, we work with the Department of Probation. We do community building circles, harm circles. A lot of it falls under the restorative justice practices that Randy will speak more about. And so we have a lot of alternatives for dispute resolution that we can offer a lot of residents and organizations on the island.
Great. So yeah, so before we pivot back to Randy, Liz, if you would tell the community, what is mediation? Just give us a
Yeah, so mediation is really a process where you bring 2 or more people together that are in disagreement or having some kind of a conflict. And we use a trained mediator. A mediator is someone that has the training to be able to help the parties identify on their own what some possible resolutions are to their conflict or the situation they find them in. You know, we're not judges, we're not attorneys, or we don't act as attorneys in mediations. We do have mediators that are attorneys, but when they have their mediator hat on, they are really facilitating a mediation, and we hand the power back to the people. You know, anybody can go to court, file a claim, and, you know, try to get a judge to make a decision, but they take the power out of their own hands and hand it off to a stranger who doesn't even know them. And so this is really an opportunity for people to keep the power and to make decisions that sometimes may not be fully aligned with the law, but they are responses to their situations that work in their life. And so it's a much more powerful process to try to work through challenges that you might have.
So instead of walking in and having a judge decide and then that's it, it's a wrap. Whatever that judge said is what you're going to do, and that's pay a fine or something else.
Not just a judge, right? It's you could be walking into your supervisor, hey, you know, Randy and I are having a problem and this is not going to work out, and having, you know, your supervisor say, well, you know, that's really too bad. Randy, you're going to do this, and Liz, you're going to do that. Like, instead of sitting us down and let us try to figure out, well, what's going on and how can we fix this so that we can coexist and work together in a healthy way.
Right.
You know, it's so much better than being told what to do. The other thing is they're longer lasting solutions, because if Randy and I are coming up with our own solution, I think we'll follow it a bit more than if we were told what our solution was, because then it's going to be a win-lose probably. Someone's going to get more of what they want and someone's not going to get what they want. And so we can both walk away hopefully feeling better about how we resolved it.
And all of these services are completely free to Staten Islanders. Is that correct?
So they are all free. As everybody knows, when you're part of a community-based organization, we rely on funders to fund our programs. But we also do a lot of training, which is a for-fee service to supplement the work that we do. And that allows us to have a bigger, stronger team. You know, diversity in who we are and what we bring to the table. And, you know, obviously, you know, now, as we all see on the news, you know, there are going to be cuts coming our way. We don't know what they're going to look like. And so training's even more important for us.
I completely agree.
So Randy,
yes,
pivoting back to you, my brother, tell me about all of this.
So when we're speaking about restorative justice, you know, we throw that word around a lot, but a lot of the things that we do are actually restorative practices. Restorative justice, well, first let's go into how it started. Restorative justice was actually an indigenous process. It's an indigenous practice. And so what it is it's an indigenous practice of where people come together in a circle and resolve an issue that may be happening amongst the tribe or amongst members of the community in a way that has fully respects and is fully inclusive of the different cultures. So this mostly came into practice and became important when you began seeing places like Australia and New Zealand, where you had Aborigines who didn't buy into any of the standards that were coming in by the colonizers, and the structures that they were setting weren't being inclusive of those indigenous people. There was a process called restorative justice, in which if an Aboriginal had offended the community in a way, right, they would, instead of going to court, what they would do is they would hold a restorative justice circle. And so they would be members of that person's tribe there. There would be the person who was offended by the crime, and they would have their support team, and there would be a dialogue in which the rules will be made from within the circle. So the circle is its own community within itself, where it governs itself and is freely separate from any type of stronghold or any type of rulership. And it really is a creative process, because what we do is organically we communicate with each other in a way that there's no judgment. We're accepting people for who they are, wholly and truly. We're bringing our true selves, and we're speaking from our heart. And the heart is the center of creation. And so what you have is a process where you're beginning to create a cohesiveness that stands strong and builds a solid foundation for the community.
Mm.
So what we do is restorative practices, right? And so that doesn't include justice in a way, but what it is it's taking those same concepts and putting them in the classroom, where you have everyday conversations around anything. You can do it with English, math, science, but you're getting the inclusiveness of the children. You're getting the inclusiveness of the students that you're teaching, so that they can add in, what they're getting from it. And in classical ways of doing education, the teacher would see that as a disruption, right? And you would try to cut off that uniqueness. You would try to cut off that intellect. You would try to cut off that understanding, because you have a curriculum to get through. This becomes all inclusive. And so everybody feels a part. Everybody's voice matters. No one's voice is higher than the other. And so what we're doing is bringing true equity, which is what I think this country has been missing for quite a long time, and many parts of the country has been missing. So we're trying to bring that in a very organic way back into the system through things like restorative practices. And that's why I love it so much. See, I get passionate when I talk about it, because it's really something that is very helpful. And what it does is it repairs any harms that have been done outside of, just unconsciously, just by going along with systems that are put in place to you. And it also repairs harm that's done within the immediate community, because there's a compassion there in the communication that's being shared.
I completely agree with you. I really like the term inclusiveness. I feel like we as people don't like authority. We don't like to be told what to do. So I feel like the solution becomes better when we become part of the solution.
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing, piggybacking off that, thank you for that, because I think what's the most important and what I'm leaving out is that the fact that when you come into the space, there is an unnatural, it's not asked for, but there is a natural urge to want to be held accountable for what you're bringing to the circle. And that's the most important part. So the thing is, even when there's a circle where harm is done, the person who has offended takes full accountability for what they've done. And also they begin to have a dialogue with other members of the community about why it even happened. So therefore, now we're going back to even maybe getting some things out of the way that even led to certain disturbances. And then now we're getting into the conversation of transformative justice, which is a whole nother thing, but it's very impactful, and it's very it can go, you can scale up or scale down as big as you want with this thing.
That's awesome.
And that is why Randy is such a great member of our team, because while I knew all of that, there's no way I would have had it flow the way he did, because he's boots on the ground and has a passion for it.
Right. Absolutely. This is I have when Randy was talking, I was hearing, hearing so many things, and also relating in so many ways from my own experience, working with young people and using, restorative practices and the circle. And I'd like to frame a question that I think sort of starts, I think that Liz is going to start answering, and I think that Randy would probably bring it home. And I think that it would be helpful to talk a little bit about this, because when you're in the work, always, we tend to throw a language around, and almost like a feeling that people are like, oh, well, of course you would want to do this. Like, why wouldn't you want to just sit in a circle and talk about how you were hurt, you know? And Liz and I, not long ago, we're having this conversation, and Liz, I'll say, in public forum also, every time I speak with you, I learn something, and the conversation was exactly that. We were talking about the potential of helping using the restorative conferencing model, the restorative circles model, and Liz brought to the surface that at times people are not even comfortable getting in the circle. So how do you arrive at a place? How do you arrive in a safe enough place where at the very least the initial work of sitting in a circle where you're completely vulnerable and there's nothing in front of you, not a desk or a wall or anything. How do you start there and get that buy-in? And then how do you go from there to actually start reaching people where, I'm in agreement, and I've seen with my own eyes that sense of people actually having this new sense of accountability in terms of like you're framing it in terms of I want to be accountable. And I think that that's the power of the circle. So I think starting with Liz, how do we help people, give this a try?
Yeah, so I actually, in preparing for today, had looked over some questions that I thought you might be asking, and my response here is really a response to a later question, but I actually want to share it here because, restorative practices really come from, you have to build a foundation, and so many folks and organizations and people think you can start at the top and then work your way down. And so, several years ago, we got involved in the Restorative Justice pilot for the New York City Department of Ed. And so, we went into this, and they had a vision of how they wanted things to do, and we started carrying out this work. The first year, what happened was, all of the suspensions went down considerably in the schools that we were all working in. It wasn't just NICE, there were several organizations working probably in about 20 to 25 schools throughout the city. But it became really clear really quickly that number didn't mean that we were actually doing really effective restorative processes or practices in the school. I would think that, in my thinking is, to some extent, it brought an awareness to administration in the school, in that a principal might now, instead of immediately suspending a child, know they have a restorative justice coordinator in the building. And if they just suspend that child, that coordinator is going to question them and say, well, why did you just suspend them? So an awareness took over for a lot of the supervisory staff in buildings. And so they weren't suspending students at the same rate. But they weren't building the foundation, right? They still weren't building the foundation. The numbers were changing, but behaviors weren't changing. And so, I really truly believe that it starts in a very simple level, a very basic level of, if we can communicate among ourselves in a civil and productive and understanding way, that's how we start to build community. It's really creating understanding between people. Two people, people say things with one intention that may sometimes be heard with a different intention. And we don't take the time to really explain ourselves and say, no, you heard that wrong. We react sometimes in a not very positive way. I really do believe if we can communicate and listen to hear and to understand and demonstrate to the other party that we understand where they're coming from, that's a first step. We also have to understand that just because I understand you doesn't mean I agree with you, right? Your point of view can be very different. I understand it. I don't agree with it. And then we also have to be able to hold those two different views at the same time and try to figure out a way that we can move forward in a productive way. I mean, those are the pieces that are missing, but they are very foundational to anything that we do. So my short answer is educate, educate, educate. You know, years ago, we had core values at NYSID that were always learning, always teaching. Our core values over the years have evolved and changed somewhat, but, you know, I've been with the agency since October 2001, right after 9/11. Those core values stuck to me till this day. If we are not in a state of always learning and always teaching what we learn, then we're stagnant and we are stifled and we're holding things up. We need to evolve with the times. And so I think it's really educating ourselves and others, like always learning ourselves and then always sharing what we've learned with others, as a very basic need to be able to move forward. I know I said a lot there.
No,
That is really, you know, that's a real, you know, I believe that. It's very simple, you know, it seems very simple. And you wonder why it doesn't happen, but I know it's a lot more complex than just believing and that's how we should be.
Absolutely. I used to teach a communications class, and the first chapter, rule number 1, communication does not take place unless there is understanding between both parties. Right? I can say something to you, but it can go in one ear and out the other. You know, hearing is something that's involuntary, but understanding takes practice and purpose. You know, we have to listen to understand, not to respond, because a lot of people, they listen and they're thinking, okay, well, what am I going to say next? Well, oh, she said this, oh no, I can't believe she said that, I'm going to say, right? But not completely understanding what that person is trying to convey. So I definitely agree with you when you say that it starts with education.
I also think that people are afraid to ask questions when they don't understand. I think some people take it as a, you know, I look weak if I don't ask the question and I don't understand. To me, it's a strength to be able to say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you meant by that. Can you, you know, clarify that for me? Because again, we walk away with very often misunderstandings, which lead to, you know, miscommunications and problems.
Absolutely. I totally understand, and I totally agree with you. I'm the first one to ask why. I'm the first one to ask who, what, where, and when. In grad school, they used to call me Robin with a Y because my name is spelled Robyn, but I was always asking somebody why. I don't understand. So they said, okay, Robin with a Y. But I think if you are the smartest person in the room, you need to change rooms. You should always be striving to learn more and understand more and educate yourself more. So I agree with you, Liz.
So taking what Liz is saying there, and now I want to just sort of like mind meld that into what Randy was talking about before, because he's using these terms that I think, you know, like we've lost as a society. We've lost the concept of compassion, you know, at that level where I can sit, you know, in a room with a few people and, you know, maybe not agree and be ready to listen and be ready to share. And how am I going to be received? Randy, how do we do that? How do you take that energy that you have and translate it into like a compassion torch where people are like, oh, I'm going to tell this guy everything, you know, I'm going to tell this room everything.
Very carefully, Mike. So no, you know, the first thing, you know, I think for any facilitator, I think the first thing is to come in with your, you know, positive intentions. And so, you know, a lot of times you got to clean up your own house. You know, you can't bring your dirty shoes into the space. And so I think that's very important. You know, I kind of want to take a left turn here and just bring you a story that's actually the foundation of my experience with restorative justice.
Yes, please.
Restorative circles. So I was working for another CBO about 16 years ago when I first moved to New York. I'm you know, from Atlanta, Georgia, born in Chicago, and through this, I was actually a peer educator. And so we were working with facilitators who were like, you know, at that time I was 20. So we were working with people who were like 35 and up. And we were paired with people in like this mentor-mentee process. And so we had a facilitator come in and we had to do this exercise where we had to face one another. And when we faced one another, there was 2 facilitators going around making sure that our bodies were completely vulnerable. And it was very, very intense for me. I wanted to get out the room, Mike. I wanted to run and just go somewhere. And at that point, up until that point, I thought I was somebody who was completely open. And let me just explain the exercise. So the exercise was we had to say positive things to each other and really mean it while being completely vulnerable. And so the exercise was called I See You As. And so everything that you said to the person while looking into their eyes and completely being vulnerable, you say, I see you as, and you say a positive inflection to them or a positive affirmation to them. Every time my mentor, who I loved and respected, a great guy, he's amazing, right? Every time he spoke to me, I was physically moved. Mm-hmm. I mean, with his words, I was physically being pushed with his words. And there was something inside me that was rejecting that. And I couldn't take him saying it. I couldn't even look him in the eyes. Every time he said something positive to me, I had to look away. And so now the exercise is over. I'm sitting down and I'm like, why was it? I couldn't figure it out. And so everybody's sharing what they got out of the experience. We all have journals. I didn't write anything. I was just still in this headspace of what's going on? And then it clicked. It clicked to me that because I had never known my father, I never really had another man of color look at me and tell me positive things. And this goes into when people get a compliment and they oh, stop. They can't accept it fully. There's something going on within that makes them want to reject the positivity. And so that leads me to say, with this process, Liz touches on important things that most people do, then when they come into the space. Understanding others, maybe not necessarily agreeing, but understanding others. The deeper part of that is understanding yourself. Through this process of sharing and hearing other people's stories, you begin to take a walk with yourself while walking with these people. I mean, this thing is so powerful. And that's why you sit, and I'm going a little bit with symbolism here, but this is truth. Truth is truth. You can't refute. That's why you sit in a circle, because the energy, it just goes around and around and around. And this is where the term squaring the circle begins to cut away from that. Because when you square the circle, people like to be boxed in. People like to box you in. Oh, this is what you do? Oh, so you're a mediator? Oh, so that's what you do. That's a box. You can't keep energy boxed in. That's why the term thinking outside the box comes in, you see? And so this process of being in this circle and sharing these stories begins to let you see outside of the box, And through that, you take a journey with yourself that raises you up a level, Because it's not about understanding once you understand you begin to kind of understand everybody else. But there are things that are there, that a lot of times you're unaware of that may come up when somebody says a key word. Somebody might say hot dogs and it takes you back to a memory. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? And so the process is really a self-discovery. But in the self-discovery, you begin to build strong bonds with the people who are sharing that with you. And you begin to hold that space sacred, even if you came in not wanting to participate. We've had people be at circles, and Liz, I'm sure you can, testify to this. We've had people come into circles and not say much at all, but by the end of it, they're like, "Oh my God, that was so powerful!" And just being able to hear the stories, and it's effective because the energy is constantly circulating. Just like electricity. A circuit goes in, it comes right back around. And that's what's so powerful about this process. And so people can come in with the vulnerability, but if we can get them in the circle, they can't deny the power of sharing, and that's where I feel like this is the most important. It's not about people coming in and actually sharing their experiences, but just being privy and allowing the space in their head to hear other people's stories, because they begin to see how it connects to their own. And that's beautiful.
So I want to just add to that, if you don't mind, because I make no secret of this. I am not a lover of circles. It is really hard for me to participate in a circle. But having said that, the power of the circle, I do participate in them. I've been in circles with Randy. I have never come out of a circle not feeling good about the circle. It's more of a hesitation of stepping into it. And Randy's right. The power of the circle takes over. For me, it's more about, I feel like I wear my life on my shoulder, but it's on my terms. I share everything with very many people, but it's on my own terms. And in a circle, I sometimes feel that choice is taken away from me because the power of the circle takes over. So there definitely is something going on in those circles that is beyond our control. And you do walk away knowing something new or different about a person. And again, it starts to build the bonds, and you also think about yourself. And you're right, Randy. One word in a circle can really, like, tap into an emotion that you had no idea that one simple word could bring that emotion up in an instant. So they're really powerful.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because Liz was talking about how it was being put in schools at first, and people were not suspending people, but at the same time, like, the behaviors weren't changing. And it's amazing that when you have a coordinator come in, a restorative justice minded person come into the school and deal with the staff that don't buy into it yet, they actually get upset that kids don't get suspended. And it's very interesting and it's very telling, because you are used to a certain reprimand or a certain punishment, and you're upset that other people aren't getting it. And so you think that they're getting off easy, when really it's not about paying back the system. You see, it's about repairing the harm that you directly caused. And that helps you grow. So, these students that are going through this process, they're going to be so mature, and they're going to have so much emotional intellect just by taking part in these processes, just by being in a school that has this service available to them. And so it's very interesting to see people outside the circle, right? Who see it from, a distance and think like, these kids aren't being suspended. Oh, so what? You just sit down and have, these are real conversations I've had with real deans. So you just sit down and have a conversation, and then they both go their separate ways. People are really angry. And so it shows that even those people are hurting, and they've been hurt in the past.
Yeah.
So they want to see other people get that same hurt that they got. And
Well, how does the saying go? Hurt. I want to say, though, because we're not bashing the DOE in any way. We've seen some really amazing positive change. Oh, it takes time. You can't just turn it on. It takes time. Over time, you see people who are really against this whole idea of being soft on crime, I guess, or these challenging behaviors. Very many of them will come around and start to see the benefits. And then they start reflecting what other people are doing in the schools. So the DOE has the right idea to bring this in and to build upon it. And again, we're in this time where funding cuts and all, and remote learning, and so we'll see how this continues as we move forward.
So that's my cat going crazy, just so you know. Go ahead, Robin. I have a question. You go first, sister.
I feel like there's so many things that I just want to ask about this and ask about this. Randy, you said something that I actually have a question about. So you mentioned in the exercise, the vulnerability exercise, about complimenting and saying something positive about the other person, that it's easy for someone to give positivity, but it's not easy for them to receive that. And speaking for myself, I can compliment you all day long, tell you have nice hair, nice shoes, what a good work ethic you have. But when someone starts saying good things about me, I'm like, all right. Anyway, why is that? You've been in so many circles, you've been in so many vulnerability exercises. What is the most common reason that people kind of shy away from receiving that love, receiving that positivity?
Well, I think it's two things that are actually needed. I think one thing is it's kind of like uh, a reality check. Like no, stop. Like I still have more work to do. I'm not perfect, right? Which is a healthy thing. And then the other thing is that the same thing. Like, I'm not that great, and there's a self-esteem thing there. And that can go back to I'm not trying to do any type of what do they call it, counseling here, but usually especially like for me, compliments weren't something that were just readily given when you were growing up. Being told that you were amazing and you were the best. Yeah, I heard that from my mom. And so as an adult, I can take that from if a woman gives me compliments, it was like the only compliments I ever sought out, right? But the power of receiving the compliment from a male and never having that before, resonated with me a completely different way. It touched parts of my soul that I had never even knew was there, And so it's really it's really just it really is in this day and time, we begin to believe that we have to humble ourselves, but at the same time, we're humbling ourselves so much that we don't realize the greatness that's captured within. You know, you being born, and I really do mean this. I'm not trying to sound like no infomercial, but the fact that you are born on this planet, the just the stats behind the fact that you came through into this existence are so small. And so with that, there's something that was meant for you to be here. And I think that we really we decline that. We really try to subdue it, because then what happens when you take it on, right? It comes great responsibility.
Mhm.
You see, and so we'd rather not take on the responsibility. We just want to be regular like everybody else, but we're not regular. We're all special. We're all supermen and superwomen. We just got to turn that thing on. And so I think that process of hearing those compliments and accepting them and owning them and wearing them as badges of honor begins to open up what I call the limitless. It's just I can spread positivity everywhere because I'm cool with receiving the positivity. You see, it's a give and a take. So if I'm constantly giving, here's the thing, Robin. If I'm constantly giving compliments, but I don't know how to take it, where's that energy coming from for me to continue to give it if nobody's replenishing it? And then when they are trying to replenish it, I'm throwing it away. You see, so I'm constantly just giving. And then you become the person who now it's like you've given everything and now nobody's there because everybody's taken what they've given and gone on and given it to other people. You see, because every time they try to bring it back to you, you're like, no, I'm fine. And we see those different things play out in so many different realms and personalities, that is very common, even when I'm saying it, to understand, hey, if I'm going to give it, I need to be able to take it. And that goes with the bad and the good, If I'm going to give it, I have to be able to take it. And that's what's powerful, because it begins, again, a circuit. You give out, you take back. You give out, you take back. Karma, it comes back to you because you're constantly giving out good. And so don't, I tell people, don't ever refuse that. Own it, really own it. And that begins a process of changing the person and how they think about themselves and about the existence outside of them as well.
I feel like I shouldn't have asked that question because you just told me about my whole life. So, oh boy.
Yeah, indeed. So, I asked this question to both of you, always, of course. In my experience, everything that you're talking about, Randy, and bringing positivity and sort of being that vessel to truly appreciate and be considerate of another human being, and how that plays into restorative practices. I've been in situations where, setting up a training with young people where, we come together to decide how, what rules or what are our guideposts. And let's say maybe one of those guideposts is no one's going to curse in the circle, right? We're gonna no, there's not going to be any profanity or any negativity in the circle. We're going to take care of each other and we're going to hold each other accountable. And then that starts out at the beginning of the day where everybody's cursing, and maybe there's only one person who's saying, hey, hey. And then as the day goes on and the week goes on, suddenly they're checking each other. And more so, they're checking themselves. They accidentally, maybe they drop an F-bomb and they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to curse, and before you know it, there's this, genuine commitment to one another. And that the accountability becomes that which you do in the dark. You're just there and you're all vibing off of one another. And there's only positivity. And when something negative does occur, everyone's in tune to that and they're with you. So at the end of the day, when people really start breaking down because they can't believe that they've arrived in that place. So I mean, I'm setting that up for you, as a little bit more information for our community, and also to touch upon what you were both sharing in sort of two different ways, which was that I think our system is about, it's about clapping down, and is almost like a laughable moment at times where it's, or you're just going to have that conversation and that's going to be that. And the reality is that there's a commitment that you get in that circle, that you get in that mediation, as Liz had mentioned earlier, where there's more to it. And I think what I would love to hear from you, from both of your perspectives, is what is the more to it? How do we get to that place with young people, with community members, where that word like actually does become a bond? And it's not like, well, you need to be suspended 15 times, because we know that that doesn't work, right? The only reason why you're coming back is to get suspended again. So what is that commitment? How does it hold people together? How does it create a bond? And what does it look like?
So I don't know if I'm going to answer that specific question, but everything that you brought up made me start thinking. First, it has to be an awareness, right? And so I think what you described is you had asked young people, you set guidelines. Although I'm learning a new word for guidelines is expectations.
Right, expectations.
I think it's a nice word.
I use that myself. Yeah.
I learned that at our last training that we did. I'm always learning, always teaching. I think first we have to get an awareness of our behaviors and, how we respond to people, how people respond to us. And so the example you used was in a training working with young people. On day one, you set out these expectations and their behaviors are still there. But as time goes on and they're modeled by, whoever's facilitating, yourself, and then these young people together, there's also a science around the neurotransmitters and all that. It starts to grow. And then by the end of the week, you find yourself in a group of young people who are really, communicating in really respectful ways, which you may not have thought possible earlier in the week. I think the same thing happens in mediations when we do them. I think the same thing happens in trainings. Our center does a lot of training and education. As I had said earlier, we work with community members, we work with students in schools, we work with attorneys. We're doing a lot of trainings for some upcoming changes that are happening in the court system, where people are going to be asked to do mediation before they are eligible to go in front of a judge. And so it's really about getting the word out and modeling the behaviors. Is how I see trying to get people to, move forward. I mean, I think even in the culture that we're in now, with this pandemic that's been so tragic in so many ways and so many lives lost, those lost lives created an awareness of the social inequities. And, healthcare is not easily accessed by all. And so, members of the community that didn't have good access to healthcare were dying in larger numbers. And so, I think at the very first step is an awareness, and then to act on that awareness in a way that can get us moving forward. If that sounds right.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
There's no one way, there's no like set in stone, add your cheese, add your this, add your that, bake it for 45 minutes and it comes out. There's no one way when you're talking about this process. This is a brand new, this is new to a lot of schools in the United States. We have seen that this process has worked exponentially in places like Chicago and Oakland. They're doing amazing restorative justice work. There was a conference in Denver that I think may have been canceled this year, but there's an amazing conference that was that they do like every 2 years. A couple of years ago, it was actually in Oakland, right when the Golden State Warriors won the championship. And so you see this collective of people coming from all different parts of the country and sharing how they implemented restorative circles, and each one is very, very unique. I mean, it's like fingerprints. It's unique to that person, and it's really unique to that facilitator. A lot of the things, everything basically that Liz said is exactly where it starts. But there isn't anything that you can give to people that's going to give them like motivation, awareness, those type of things. What you have to do is just start with the people who do have that, even in your small community, and just watch the magic happen. Watch how it transforms a kid that used to be a problem child, right? Like there's power in words. So she said guidelines and then she corrected herself and said expectations, right? And so there's a power in words. So if you call a child a problem child, guess what you have? You have a problem on your hands.
Right.
You called them that. And so they received that, and now that's what they're going to give you. And even not saying that this is right or wrong, but just giving leniency. In my circles, I worked in middle schools, I worked in elementary schools, I've worked in high schools, but middle school is my favorite because middle schoolers love shock value. They love shock factors. They just want to do things to shock you. And so it's interesting because I never gave any explicit rule that there would be no cursing because none of them gave the rule, and I wanted to be very collaborative. And they didn't curse because they knew it wouldn't shock me if they did. I wouldn't see, they're going for a reaction. So if they say a curse word and they know you're going to react to it, they're going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
Because the attention is around them now. It's about me. Now I take over the show, you see? But
Sure.
if I make it explicit that you can't curse, we have regular dialogue. It never comes up. And what I do trust is that if a curse word does come out, it's because that kid is trying to express themselves in a way where that word is the only word that they can think of, because at 3:30, they're going back to whatever they're probably talking about right now. And I can't do nothing about that. And so I have to allow them that space to breathe, and so there's no one way. You take the facilitator is going to tell you a different way how to get it, from week 1 to week 36. They're going to tell you, it's a different process. And, we had some kids that were like this, so we had to take this way. But what it is just believing in the process, setting your intentions, getting people to speak from their heart, being able to, if there is conflicts between two members, being able to what I've now learned as a word, caucus, being able to caucus them, take them out of the group, and then just do a one-on-one with them to figure out what the root of that is. But, what I've seen in my experience is powerful, powerful stories that, because there's a confidentiality clause, I can't share over the airwaves. But I mean, real powerful stuff where people who truly was just like, really become brothers. I mean, real brothers. And
I think you have to bring you also have to bring your true self to the table. People know when it's just a process or a show, especially young people. And it's interesting when you say the shock value of young people when you're working with them. I've done work at Curtis and McKee high schools over the years, mediating, a lot of situations with young girls. And so they will throw words out that are like, whoo, I haven't a clue what that word means. But what I found was if I asked them, can you tell me what that word means? First, they're shocked and they're like, oh, miss, I don't think you want to hear it. And I'm like, no, I really do want to hear what it means. And that actually opens them up as well, because now they know they're speaking to somebody that's actually allowing them to share what they want to share. And when you ask people to change the way they communicate, like no cursing, sometimes I feel like we're stifling their voice, because like you said, Randy, sometimes they need to say a word to express how they're really feeling. And that's the only word that may be the only way they know how to express it.
Absolutely. But you just want to make sure it's a safe space. And so I think ultimately what you're asking, what you've been asking is like, how do you set a safe space? How is it set? And it just comes with letting them choose what is happening every step of the way. Every step of the way. You come in, it's open seating. If you want to assign seats, let's have a conversation about it. Everybody has to agree to it. What are the rules? What are the guidelines? How are we going to do this thing together? Right. Everybody has a say in it. What days are we going to talk about curriculum? What days are we just going to have free time? I mean, they're really setting their own schedules because each one is a part. Nobody's voice gets suppressed. And that's what the beauty in it is, because if you take those small steps with sticking true to those particulars, you get a wide range of things, because it begins to influence the way that they communicate with each other. Just the same with the example that you were giving, Mike. They begin to take it in, and if they buy into it, you're going to get a whole lot of processes coming out of that in a myriad of different ways. And ultimately, what you're going to do is with your child, with the kids who are the most shy, you're going to build a lot of autonomy in them. And that's my, me as a practitioner, that's my goal. My goal is to have the kid who doesn't ever speak up for themselves have the autonomy to speak up for themselves. Because a lot of times there's nobody to speak up for them, and so they have to do it themselves. And how do we go about that? And I found this process as a way, to be able to do it by giving it, hey, you have a choice in this. You have a choice. And if you say no and 29, the 15 or 29 other people say yes, then we're not going to do it because you said no, because you're a part of this.
Are these practices open to adults? Because we're talking a lot about children, we're talking a lot about school age. Do you do this work with a lot of people that are in college, people that are, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah, so I want to actually just respond to that because I think Randy can also share some of the work that he has been doing with some of our staff members. So all of the work we do is open to people of all ages. And I know we've been talking a lot about restorative practices and circles, but Randy was just saying something about empowering people to be able to participate in a better way. Mediation is also very empowering for the parties. We do a lot of mediation. We do hundreds, more than 1,000 cases a year sometimes. And so just to give you an example of empowering adults in this, we do a lot of special education mediations. And so special ed mediation is where there might be a child that has some special needs that have either not been identified yet or they've been identified and a parent may not be in agreement as to what the school might be saying their child needs, or they're already in a school setting and the child is not learning or progressing as quickly as a parent might think they should be progressing. And so at the end of the day, a school and a parent doesn't agree on something. And so they come together in mediation. And I can, just to share a really quick story, I did a mediation years ago between a mom, principal, I think it was physical therapy provider and a speech provider. They came to the center to do mediation. The mom had a very high powered attorney. I think it was like pro bono work. She somehow had access to this very high end attorney. And so I share this story with people and I say to them, although this is not the case, we do not have a podium in our conference room that somebody stands at and speaks. The way I remember this attorney is at a podium on a mic sharing, right? It's just a metaphor. They weren't really doing that. They were sitting at a table in a circle. But that's the feeling that I got from this attorney. And so the attorney naturally, was protecting the mom and the child and was taking over the process. And so I had asked the mom, it's really important that we hear like what's going on for your child. And, I understand that you don't want to speak. And she said, I can. She goes, I don't have the ability to share what I need to share. That's why I have an attorney speaking for me. And I said, I think that's fine. And I think your attorney is going to bring a lot of good information to the process, but it would be really important for me to hear from you as a mom, like what's going on for you. And she started to talk and she talked and she talked and she talked. She was in that moment empowered to share what was going on for her. And it was the first time that the school had heard from the mom, because they'd had a relationship where it was a very bad relationship. I would say this mediation might have been being held in December or January. The mom had never been in the child's classroom. She didn't feel like she was able to go in the classroom. And so because all of that came out in this mediation, because the mom finally felt that she was in a safe place to be able to share, and we had to work a little bit with the attorney to let the attorney know, look, you're very valuable to this process and you can certainly share whatever or, add whatever you want to the process. The teacher was crying, the therapist was crying. We had to actually take a break because there are a lot of emotions coming up when this mom finally became empowered. And so anyway, at the end of the day, they walked out of the room with, a plan. Like the mom had open access to the school, didn't even have to stop at the front desk, could walk right in, could see her child at any time. She didn't want them to be warned that she was coming in. And the mom also learned how much they knew about her child. So these are processes that they're not going to get just because they have a high powered attorney or some strong advocate speaking for them. This is mediation is a process that really brings people together and gives them the ability to be able to share at whatever level they can. When the DOE is involved, why parents feel disempowered is it's them as an individual against this big organization. And so they really feel like maybe I don't have the education to be able to speak like them. I'm going to look like an idiot if I use the wrong term. And so this is a process that really evens the playing field for everyone and really empowers people. And so, yeah, our programs really are for just about everyone. If you're disabled, and now in this remote learning, this remote world, in the past we used to do phone services. Now we can do it on Zoom and we get to see people's, faces, their reactions, make sure they're understanding what's going on. Circles, we can give it back to Randy. You can talk about some of the community building circles or responses to what's going on right now that they've been doing online virtually.
Absolutely. So what we've been doing at NICET is we've been doing community violence circles. The first thing, police violence circles, excuse me. But before that, what we did was we did community circles based off COVID-19. So one of the things that ended up happening right after I started is we went into the quarantine. I started March 2nd, as I had stated earlier. And so shortly thereafter, we weren't in the office anymore. And it just so happened that when I did my interview over an app called Zoom. And so who would have known that within 6 weeks, this same platform that I did my interview through would then be the catalyst for us to be able to continue the work that we're doing while these things were happening. And so the first thing that we did was, we knew that the community needed us. We knew that everything was on hold, but we weren't on hold. We had an ability. We had the equipment. We got rolling. We started setting up community circles, and we had a great response. I think we did maybe 2 or 3 of them. They were both like, all of them were very full, great conversations, great dialogues, but mostly people who were not understanding and knowing what to do with what was happening. And everybody on the call, in the same way, was comforted by the fact that they weren't the only ones. And that sharing was so proud. And we gave a list of resources that people can have. Of course, within our company, we had a great list of resources coming through the mainframe through, Michael and other people on our staff who was really going the extra mile to try to make sure that people had the things that they needed to get through this tough time. Once the George Floyd situation unfortunately happened, and we were all kind of taken aback by that and really just shocked that in this time of need that the country needs, that we were being shown these images all over again that we had seen since 2012 with Trayvon Martin. We then began to get on the ball with that. So, we started, stopping the community violence, stopping the COVID circles. And they said, you know what, we're going to do a police violence circle because the community needs healing. Everybody's seeing these images. It doesn't matter. It's not about color. What it is about the fact that we share this community. And if we don't share an immediate community, we share this planet. And the planet in itself is a community. And so how are we going to begin to do this in a way that is non-destructive? Why do we, what is it in us that makes us always divide and create division and say, that's over there and that's over there? It's all one. We're all here on this one ball. This one circle is where we are. And so, we definitely got on the ball to make sure that we were able to service anybody who was in need at that time through our apparatus, through the Zoom calls, and being able to have that dialogue in a safe space that we had set up. We got on a call with a school in Houston, and we were able to deliver some services to them where they were already restorative justice gurus. So what we did was we were able to bring some trainings to them, some peer education trainings, and a lot of them were like, I wish I had known about these mediation techniques while I was in school. I mean, they were really, really enthralled and really learning something, and you could see it in their eyes, and they were picking it up really quick. And so we're able to not just service Staten Island, we have an ability to tap into any place in the world, and this goes, it scales up or scales down as big or as small as you want it. And that's the beauty of it. And so we just through to doing, and that's going into the conflict, being able to get to the root of the problem, and being able to sort out, the differences to where we can come to a common agreement. And the work is proven true. The work is proven true. So I'm just excited. I'm excited about where this goes.
Did you think we wouldn't have enough to say?
Oh, I knew this was going to be good. We can keep going.
The reason why I asked about the ages for all of these practices was because I know quite a few people that can benefit from restorative justice practices, mediation, the circles, so on and so forth. But I noticed that people are plagued with toxic masculinity and other things of that nature. So, how do you frame this work in a way that people would want to come? Because if you say it to some of the individuals that I'm thinking of that actually need these practices, they're going to say, I don't want to sit down and paint my toenails and talk about my feelings, right? But that's not what this is at all. How do you frame this to people that don't understand what exactly is going to take place in these sessions?
Mhm.
So, Robin, you ask a really good question, one that we have not been able to answer um, forever. Again, this pandemic, as tragic as it is also bringing a lot of gifts um, to people. And so, one of the gifts that we're seeing that we are really super excited about is the court system is changing. We have for many, 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 many years been asking um, for our funders to put a push behind strongly encouraging people to use mediation services before they go to court or file claims. One of the tenets of mediation, which we hold very close and true to, is it's voluntary. And so we can't get people to the table, whether it's families, whether it's, landlord tenants. I'm sure a lot of the people that we could talk until we're blue in the face. We're answering calls on a daily basis because they're being referred to us by 311. And the minute we say mediation, oh, no, 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 he or she is never going to come. I'm not going to sit down with them. It's not something that people come running to. I can also tell you from experience that in all the years that I've been doing mediation and a lot of my colleagues, once we get people in the room and we hand it back to them, hey, you're free to leave. Just, can you tell me a little bit about why you don't want to stay? They don't leave, right? They start to already feel heard just in that the few, the first 5 minutes that they're there, in how we model how this process is going to be. And so we have spent a lot of time and money and used public come on, give me the word, Michael, public relations experts and all to try to get the word out. We've offered free mediation trainings. It's all about education, education, education. It is still very hard to get people in the room. The gift that we're getting in this pandemic is the courts, shut down. And so a lot of justice wasn't being served. And so now they have to try to figure out how to make this all happen. And so they are now starting to go remote. Small claims court is the first in New York City, is the first official arm of the court system to go 100% virtual and presumptive mediation. What that means is it is presumed that every case that gets filed in small claims court may be eligible for mediation. And so we're working with some of the higher ups in the Office of Court Administration right now, designing the program. It's going to be rolling out almost as we speak. They are going to be reviewing cases that are, they're going to be screened out for domestic violence and things like that. But cases that are then screened out are all going to go to the local mediation programs around the 5 boroughs. and to strongly encourage people to try to voluntarily participate in this process. They're not going to get a court date for 6 months. So think about people who are filing a small claims for under $5,000, let's say. They want to wait 6 months for their money, or do they want to try to get their money quickly? They're more likely to try a process that they really didn't want to do in the first place to be able to get their money sooner, if it, falls out that way, that they're getting any of the money that they're suing for. And so, be careful what you wish for. We've been asking for this for years, and now they're pushing it. Everyone that does contact us, they are going to be told that, it is voluntary. You're not required to, you've already contacted us. But in our experience, we are trained to do these intakes. When we speak with people on the phone, even though they're very resistant, we do this like bless and release at the end of it. Oh no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Look, we've said a lot today. We shared with you what the process might look like. Why don't you just think about it? If you decide in a week or two that you want to consider this, then we'll reach out to the other party. Very often before the call ends, they're already changing their mind and saying, yeah, you know what? Call that other person and see if they're interested in doing it. And then we proceed from there. So it's hard in the school, it's hard all over, but it's becoming a process where people are being strongly encouraged or being asked to do it before another process, or to consider it before another process. And so that is going to get more people to the table. And the more people that come to the table with successful outcomes, the more people will hear about it back in their communities, hopefully, or through their family members. And so, just to be clear, success for us doesn't mean agreement. You don't have to have an agreement in a mediation session for it to be a success. Our goal is, if people come into this mediation process, if they walk out with a new or different understanding of their situation, that's a success, because they are now more informed as to what their next steps might be if it's going to go beyond mediation. And they've also got some clarity on their own like perspectives on the conflict because of how the mediation went.
That's awesome. That's really great.
It's not an answer. We'll see what happens. But every day is a new day. We'll see where it goes. Anything, you said you wanted some levity in this. I'm a big Cinderella fan. I have 3 granddaughters. My favorite Cinderella version was with Leslie Warren back in, I think, the 60s. I'm trying to force it on my 3-year-old granddaughters. But there's like a song in there. It's like, it's possible. Things are happening every day. So
yeah.
It's possible.
It's possible. It's possible.
Absolutely. So, Liz is correct. Like that, that's a hard question to answer. And when you're trying to bring people to the space, I think the most important thing is, why do you want to bring them to the space? What do you think they need? And so with that, you begin to kind of tease out like what's really important to them, as far as getting them in the process. It's like, what's important to you around this thing, this conflict, whatever it is that, you feel like they need to come to a space, a restorative space. What's really important to them? Figuring out what that is, because everybody has something that's important to them, and even if it's, I like liquor, well, if you like liquor, why do you like liquor? Well, because it makes me forget about the past. Well, what happened in the past? Oh, well, now you're getting to the meat and potatoes, you see? And it's like, hey, if you have, issues with abandonment, or abandonment is your thing, or distrust is your thing, let me welcome you to a space where, you don't even have to participate. We just want you to come into the space and just observe, and if you want to participate, you can. This begins to, now a tether is being built around what their need is. It's almost like a lasso, right? You're a cowboy now. Now you found the need, and now you can kind of reel it in and just bring them into the space. And you let the restorative process just take over. You let them observe it. And if they come out of that space and they say, you know what, this is powerful, but no thanks. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not a sharing type of person. I'm not that kind of girl. It's like, okay, all right, cool. Thank you for being here. And we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you being in the space, and still giving that gratitude. Not being upset or saying, like, not even trying to force anybody, because you can't force anybody. The more you try to force a thing, the more it's going to reject you. You know, it's like the same magnet. You're trying to put two same poles of a magnet together. It's always going to repel. You know, so you have to find a different way to bring it back together. Yeah.
So as I know, we could go on forever, and I'd like to sort of pose one other question that my curiosity is, I think, driving it, and it's because that I know what the experience of learning conflict management and effective communication and restorative practices has meant for me in my life. How does this work affect your personal lives? And in it, like, where are the solutions for us all as a people? And I think that we've heard a lot of solutions, of course. So just sort of wrapping this up in a nugget.
I mean, I think it's walking the talk. Is that the expression that you use? I think it's really just modeling what we really believe. Like, I hope that what I bring to the table is who I really am, and that I'm not just, putting on this front to do the work that I do. But I think it's who I am that makes me good at what I do. And so, what was the question that you asked? How do we, I'm not sure. We have to go back to that.
How does this affect your personal life?
I mean, I am who I am at work and at home. And and because I am who I am at work, and look, and I'm not perfect. I mean, I can walk this talk all I want and share all of my personal beliefs and answer my door one day because they're doing construction in front of my house and they ring the bell at 7:00 in the morning, and I just like start screaming, like, why are you ringing my bell at 7:00 in the morning, instead of asking, like, why was it important for you to ring my bell 7:00 this morning, in a nice civil tone? So, but I think for the most part, I don't. So I have a physical reaction when I am not feeling good about something. So if I am in a situation with anybody, whether it's family or a work member, and something doesn't go right, I actually have a physical reaction to that. And so I can't hold that in. I have to address it in the moment. I did, I did your conflict management styles test, by the way.
You did.
And I scored a 91% of the problem solving things. Surprise. So, and then I couldn't print it out. So I had to do it again. And I scored the same 91 on the, on the problem solving piece. So I think that really is who I am. And, they try to ask you the same question 30 different ways. But I am who I am because of my physical response to conflict. So I don't know how else to answer that question.
Yeah, you answered it.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, that's an interesting question because in my walk, it's been more important about how my personal life has affected my work. And I lived, from the time I was born to the time I was 18, I lived in 6 different states, spanning the Midwest, down to Florida, over to Texas, Georgia. And so these are like, your growing years. This is where you're learning. This is where you have a stable environment. I never had a stable environment. And so, what ended up happening was I couldn't move to another place where I'm the only one that's from wherever I'm from and judge people. What do I look like coming into Texas judging them because I just moved from Miami? I'm not gonna make friends that way. And so naturally, like throughout my years, where you begin to build up like this ego, and it's about your clique when you become a teenager. I didn't have those things. I didn't have people that, as we say, we grew up in the sandbox with. I never had that, and so naturally, I just couldn't judge. I always observed and tried to understand, and that's how it affected me. Walking this path and being able to feel so naturally aligned with this ideology. It wasn't nothing out of the box for me to incorporate into my daily habits, because I had been doing that my whole life, which is what eventually led to me, moving to New York at 20 years old. I put all my stuff in storage. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment, like in downtown Atlanta. Threw all my stuff in storage. I had like $76 after I bought my ticket, and I just came. I didn't know not one person here. But because of my path, I had never been afraid to go to a new place. That fear kind of got washed out by the time I was 12 or 13. Now in my adult life, though, I do have children. And so this work is making me so much more of a father, and truly being understanding of things. I have 5 girls, so I'm really like, I don't get girls. I'm like, I don't get you guys. He's always chilling. My son wants to be to himself. He don't want to be bothered. He's not worried about other people's stuff. My girls, they always concerned about what everybody else is doing. They ready. And so what happens is patience, right? I've learned the patience through this work. It's really taught me how to really not allow things outside of me that I can't control affect how I think, or distort what the goal is. If I'm committed to something, I can't let the fact that somebody else doesn't work as hard as me affect me. The work still has to be done, and I think by doing this restorative process and maybe having a kid that wants to disrupt, having an adult that's like, man, this is stupid. I don't want to do this. Going through those processes and having those experiences, I can't let what that person's doing affect the energy that's happening within. And so I'm able to bring that home, and it's proven very impactful for me, because instead of going into the conflict, I just leave the conflict, I just leave that where it's at, and then I interact with it on how we can resolve it. I used to be going head first into the conflict, you know what I mean? Like, what? I just got home. What is your problem? Don't ask me what my problem is, and so this process has definitely affected like my relationships with my friends. I find myself being more attuned to what they're going through, whereas I used to see people coming to me with their problems as a bother. I had to step into that space and accepted that that's what you do for a living, brother. So you must be good at it. You know what I mean? It must be what people see in you. And so it just made me, stop going 90 miles an hour. Maybe the view is a little bit better and I'll be able to take in more if I just go at 25 miles per hour. So that's how the work has affected my personal life.
Yeah. Can I just add something also? I want to give credit where credit is due. I'm not the same person I was when I joined NYSID in 2001. And I was around their philosophies all these years. And so, that also shaped who I am today. I may not have been so laid back and understanding in a lot of situations that I am now, had I not had this experience over the past, I guess, going on 20 years. And also, my exposure to being a part of like all of the trainings and being around amazing, training facilitators, Sequoia Stalder, our senior director, Adam Berner, who when I first started here was our trainer. And so, just to give credit where credit is due, I am not who I am just because of who I am. It's my surroundings have created that as well.
Indeed, it's all about surrounding yourself with people who are not just of like mind, that will support you and lift you up.
Absolutely.
We are so grateful to both of you. I think we're nearing like the hour and 20-minute mark. So we probably need to skip on down the road. And just to say that, I feel so much gratitude to each of you for the way that you give of yourselves every day to NYSID, and that we as an organization get to give to the community. So without you both and the rest of the team, we don't get to say all the amazing things that we say here on the podcast and in other places. So thank you so much for your time and your effort and your energy and your love and your compassion.
Well, thanks for listening to us. I know that we like to talk.
Yeah. Indeed.
It's much appreciated. Thank you guys. You guys are an awesome team. I watched the other episodes. I like how you guys ping pong off each other. The energy is great. Adam behind the scenes is doing a great job. So, let's just keep it going. What we're building, what we're continuing to build, the legacy of 50 years moving forward. Like, when we come back to work, we're going to be looking at a whole different landscape. And so, I'm looking forward to what NYSID is going to do within the next 50 years,
I am so thrilled that I am alive to even be a part of everything that's happening right now and to witness it. It's an amazing time, and at the 50-year mark, like Randy pointed out. So who knows what it's going to be like at the 75 and 100-year mark.
Indeed.
On a personal note, Liz and Randy, you are clear examples that you are products of your environment. NYSID is a beautiful environment to be in. So I also, like Randy and Adam, started with NYSID in March. So I look forward to the person that I'm going to become in the next 5 and 10 years because of the environment that I'm in. So
glad that you were able to join us.
Yes.
Cool. We will see you out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
You will. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was such an amazing conversation with the CM team. Oh my goodness. How do you feel about that, Michael?
I'm so happy. I am. I'm like taking it all in because I am so deeply committed to NYSID. And the reason I am so deeply committed to NYSID is because of that work, of this work. I have only used pieces of it to do the work that I have been privileged to do for NYSID in the youth programs. And they are just out there all day, every day, improving lives by helping people communicate with one another. And they find ways, new and innovative ways. And to be in the environment that we're in now with this pandemic and knowing that we're still helping people, we're still giving them the space to really be heard and to be empowered to come to their own decisions and conclusions. It just makes me happy. It makes me happy.
I think it's amazing how shrewd and wise Liz and Randy are with their words and their ideologies, and the things that they say just really connect to everyone personally. Like I know when I was chatting with Randy, some of the things that he was saying, the answers to the questions that I was asking, I really felt it in my heart. I started to get teary-eyed. I was like, wait, I'm on camera. Nope. So I immediately changed the subject. But I think that the work that they're doing is absolutely awesome. So, and it's super important for us to find solutions.
Yeah, and it really is connecting. Randy was, speaking directly to how, we're all a piece of this life, and you have to acknowledge that, and that really where there are breakthroughs is when you're in that circle and people start to recognize their commonalities instead of spending so much time just trying to be different. Mm-hmm. That in being heard, you realize that you're a human being, you're on this planet, you exist at this time. How amazing that is, as he says, that that we're here right now, and that we're experiencing this, that there's an obligation that comes with that. And that obligation is that we're all in one way or another, we're of service to each other, mm-hmm. And in this life and this time and everything that we're dealing with, and in all of divisiveness and all of the divisiveness, to be heard and to then be able to hear someone else. And if we can just start there and not start at the place of my ego is more superior than yours. And that's what the circle brings. And that's what the mediation brings. Mediation brings you to a place where, and I love how Liz, both of them do it. So many times they reminded me of, what's the question behind the question? You're here now, and I understand that you want to leave. Share with me why you want to leave. Not, okay, you're here now, and I guess you have to go, because you're saying that you want to leave. Before you go, just tell me why. Mm-hmm. What is it? And it's giving people that space, that we all need that space. We're all just going through life wanting to be understood. And in this process, we get to be understood, and we all get to be heard. We get to live in our humanity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I don't know about you, Michael, but I'm waiting for Liz and Randy to write a book. I feel like with every podcast that we do, we're giving charges to people. First, it was Isaiah to become president. Then it was
Yeah.
to Nitty to save the world. And now it's for Liz and Randy to write a book.
Indeed, 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 indeed. I love that. Yes. So here it is. You've heard it here.
Yep.
We're charging people, and you write a book, and you write a book. So this has been another amazing installment, one that I have been looking forward to for the longest time. So I would ask our listeners to let us know how we're doing. Is there somebody out there that you think that we should talk to, that we should hear from? Somebody out there that is living proof that solutions can be found right in the community. Look down below. You'll see us at Facey Space at NYCID. Also on the Tweety Tweets. That's where we are too, right? Am I getting this right, Adam? Adam's shaking his head, so I think I got it right. And on Instagrammy, and we're on the Tickety Talk now at NYCID improves lives _improves lives. So please follow us. We'll follow you back. And please continue to listen to what we're all about, because we are here to find solutions and to give space to create flow. I love you all.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to get to know you guys. Feel free to comment, like, share, whatever, and tell us your stories. When you tell us your stories, we'll tell you ours and we'll share your stories. Okay?
Indeed.
All righty. Until
Peace
next
and
time.
love. Peace and love.